Hello and welcome back to the channel for the Budget Knitter podcast. My name is Spargur, and today is not a podcast. Today is actually really exciting. I am announcing our very first knit-along. And for this knit-along, I have chosen something that several of you have requested. We are going to do the Flax Sweater by tincanknits. Now, what I love about this sweater is that it's simple, it's a great design for any gender, any age, and it actually knits up really quick because it uses worsted weight yarn. So today what I want to do is get everybody prepared for how this is going to work. So I want to do a knit along but also tutorial video series. So I was thinking what we could do is every few weeks or so we would check in and say, so this is the next part we're in the sweater, and here's how you work these different techniques. So with that, hopefully we're all going to be able to do this together. However, to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the pattern, we're going to go over the things that you'll need to knit the pattern, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the one that I've already started, because if I didn't already knit one, I wouldn't know how to teach it to you. So the fun thing about this is I'll actually end up knitting 2 sweaters by the time this is all said and done. So, without further ado, let's go over the supplies we are going to need and a little bit of the details about the pattern. So first things first, let's take a look at the pattern. So this is the Flax Sweater. By the way, this is a free pattern on Ravelry, so you do not have to pay for it. You can go to Ravelry, you can type in flax, or you can type in tincanknits, and you should be able to find it that way. So a few things about the pattern. I love this pattern. I love the way it's written. Everything seems to be going really well. So the first thing I want to point out is this sizing chart. This is something that we will tackle in the next video. But I do want to show you all of the different sizes that are available for this. So this would be the pattern size, which will correspond to the different numbers in parentheses in the pattern. Then you have chest measurement. Chest measurement is the, I believe it is the final size of the garment when you're finished knitting it. So for me, I am a 46-inch chest. So I know that the 43-inch finished garment is not going to fit my chest, even with the positive ease. So I'm going to go ahead and knit the 47-inch, because that should fit on me relatively well and still be loose. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Sleeve length, this is what the finished sleeve length should be when you're done. Hem to underarm is from the bottom of the sweater up to your armpit. Upper arm is, I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to. I've never run into anything where that really matters. And then over here, it's going to give you the approximate yardage for amount of yarn that you're going to need to knit this pattern. Oops, sorry. So that's a great thing. So this is also telling you how or where all of the measurements are. Right? So the next thing I love about this pattern is that it tells you exactly how you're going to construct it, and it gives you pictures for how to do it as well. So this is the beginning of the pattern, and we are going to go over this step by step as the videos continue. What I would like to point out is after you've picked your size, you should go through and highlight the number corresponding to the size that you're going to knit. Otherwise, you may make a mistake, and that can be really difficult to go back and fix. So I've already gone ahead and done that in this pattern. I am knitting the extra large size for my first one. The other thing I love about this pattern is that they include pictures of different people wearing it. So it's got 3 different sizes. There's the adult gentleman's, then the adult woman's, and the child sweater. Also, they will give you abbreviations for what all the different stitch symbols mean. And then the last page of the pattern, oh, some more pictures. Again, I love this. I love that they give you pictures of what it looks like. Now, of course, my printer only prints in black and white, but these are in color on Ravelry. The last page is actually just more pictures of the different types of patterns that they have, and I believe these are all available for free. So that's just a really cool thing to have. So let's go over materials. So this calls for worsted or Aran weight yarn. For my sweater, the first one, I am knitting mine in KAL Big Cakes. It's a worsted weight self-striping yarn, and I'm using the Cranberry Crisp colorway, and I will show you that when we're done going over the supplies, just to show you how much I've gotten done so far. It's also going to give you your gauge. 18 stitches and 22 rounds equals 4 inches in stockinette stitch using the larger needles being US number 8s that they call for here in the pattern. So they're calling for US 6s and US 8s, and the great thing is they've broken this down by size. So if you're knitting something for 0 to 4 years old, you're just going to use 16-inch circulars and double-pointed needles. If you're doing someone 4 years old to an extra small size, you're going to need 16-inch circulars, 24-inch circulars, and double-pointed needles in both sizes. And then if you're knitting the small to the 4XL, you need the 16-inch circulars, 32-inch circulars, and double-pointed needles in each size. So here I have, these are my US 6s. Now, these are my short needle tips because you are going to have to use these on the 16-inch cable. A 16-inch cable is really hard to use if you're using longer needle tips. So if you have an interchangeable set, you should attempt to use shorter needle tips. It's going to work out much better for you. If not, I recommend doing the collar on double-pointed needles. So here is my 16-inch cable. Then I actually have a 24-inch cable. I have a 32 somewhere, but I can't find it. So this is my 24-inch cable. I'm going to do as much as I can on this until I find my 32-inch. And then I have my double pointeds in US 6s. I actually still have to get double pointeds in US 8s, but having gone through the pattern, I'm actually not sure I'm going to need them, except for the sleeves, and that's towards the end of the pattern. So these are my US 6s. A couple of other things that I recommend that you have. The stoppers, if you have an interchangeable set, because as you're switching from one set to the other, instead of slipping stitches from one cable to the next, I actually will just knit off of one onto the other. So I put stoppers on both ends to make sure that I'm not losing the stitches at the other end. If you have interchangeables like me and you need a key, I recommend you have your key available. The other thing I recommend is having a crochet hook or something to pick up dropped stitches. I actually dropped a couple while I was just kind of getting through the beginnings of the pattern, so it was really nice having that crochet hook to be able to pick up stitches. You'll also want scissors, of course, stitch markers. On mine, I'm currently using 4, but you can use up to 8, and I'm going to show you that as we continue through these tutorials. And another thing you'll want is a tape measure, and that's so you can measure yourself and so you can measure your work as you continue through the pattern. Now, I want to show you what I have done so far. So first of all, here's the yarn I'm using. This is the KAL Big Cakes in the Cranberry Crisp colorway. I love this yarn. It's a worsted weight yarn. It's super soft. And this is almost 600 yards per cake, so I really don't have to tie in a whole lot of yarn. And on top of that, this is also a self-striping yarn, and I love self-striping yarns. So here is the beginnings of my sweater. So it looks really thick on screen, but I promise you it's not that thick. The flax is made distinct by this garter bump panel that will run down the entire sleeve on both sides. I am probably about halfway through the increase section, because this is worked from the collar down. I'm about halfway through the increase section on this part. I actually have to do about another 22 rounds of increases to get to the part where I finally bind off the sleeve. So this is what I've done. This took me about 2 days, elapsed time maybe about 6 hours. But that was also some figuring out the pattern. And there were some increases, and there were a couple of modifications I made based on some ideas that some other people that have knit this had given me. So I'm really, really excited about how this is going to turn out. And I will tell you about those modifications in future videos. For the purposes, though, of getting through the pattern, I'm not going to put in the modifications just because I don't want to confuse anybody else. So that's a look at the beginnings of my sweater and the materials you're going to need. So in a moment, we will talk yarn ideas. So again, the Flax Sweater calls for a worsted or aran weight yarn. For me, again, I'm using Caron Big Cakes in the Cranberry Crisp colorway. That's a little bright, isn't it? There we go. Cranberry Crisp colorway. And again, this is, where is it? 603 yards per cake. So I would only need 3 cakes of this to finish my sweater. And at Michael's, this is, I think, $8 or $9. So it's really, if you do that, it's like a $30. Am I doing that math right? 27. Yeah, it's like a $30 sweater. Very affordable, great gift idea. So that's an idea, but I have a couple of other things you could use if you want to use acrylic, especially keeping with the budget idea, also keeping with if this is your very first sweater, I recommend doing it out of something that's an acrylic or something that you're okay with. You spend all this time, not a whole big waste if it doesn't turn out the way you thought it did. So other things you can use are just regular Caron cakes. Those are smaller. I think they're only about 300 yards per cake, but those actually are about 80-20. I think they're 80 acrylic, 20 wool. So there are some natural fibers in there. It makes it a little bit softer, a little bit more breathable. That's something you can use as well. The first sweater I ever knit, I actually knit out of Caron Simply Soft. That's a great worsted yarn. It's got a beautiful sheen. It's very, very, very soft. They have solids, but they also have some ombres. That's a great yarn as well. I found that I particularly enjoyed using that yarn. And then, let's see. If you really, really wanted to, you could use the Red Heart acrylic, that cheap stuff you get from Walmart. It comes in like $5 to $7 for a massive, massive ball. If you don't plan on wearing this often, or you're just doing this to kind of get the hang of constructing your very first garment, you could do that. If it's not something that you plan on wearing or that you plan on using too often, if you're really just trying to get the stitches down and learn about the construction, you could use that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there are ways that if you did want to wear it, you can actually soften up Red Heart acrylic yarn, and it actually does become, I mean, it's not incredibly nice, but it does make it a lot nicer and much more bearable to have against your skin. So that's an idea as well. The other idea is, if you're a yarn dyer, if you're into yarn dyeing, you could dye your own yarn to knit this sweater, or, I actually had this idea recently, you could buy a bunch of bare hanks and knit it up in white, and then later you could dye the whole thing together so that you don't have to worry about two hanks where the dyes aren't exactly the same and getting any kind of weird pooling or anything like that. I actually thought about doing that for my second one, but then I realized that that's not going to translate well on screen. You won't be able to see what I'm doing. But, you know, in the future I might knit a sweater out of bare yarn and then dye it all as one dye bath so that I can get a nice uniform solid color. Or I could speckle it or do whatever I wanted to with it and make it really unique. So that's an option if that's something that you wanted to do. I think that would be really cool if that's something you chose to do. Other yarn ideas are really any kind of worsted weight yarn. That could be hand dyed, that could be if you spin your own. I know there are people that do that. Anything that has a number 4 or says worsted on the ball band. So if you get a ball band and you see right there where it says 4 medium, it's a little blurry. That is a worsted weight yarn. Anything that has that number should work just fine. Of course, you'll want to swatch, and that is going to be actually in the next video. We're going to swatch and learn how to choose the correct size. So from here, what you should do is, if you want to participate in the knit along, is go to Ravelry and get the pattern. Just search flax or search tin can knits to find the pattern. Then make sure that you have all of the tools necessary. If you have any questions about tools or substituting tools or anything like that, please leave me a comment, or I'm going to leave my email in the video description box below so that you can send me an email if you have any questions about it. I want to be very hands-on with you guys when it comes to doing this knit along because it's kind of new to all of us. The other thing is, there is a Ravelry group for this podcast. It's just the Budget Knitter podcast on Ravelry. You can search it and join. I'm going to start a thread in there for this knit along, and as we continue, I believe I'm going to throw in some giveaways for finished objects. So if you finish the sweater, and I'll come up more with a time frame for this, so don't freak out now, because this is going to take me a while too. So there should be a giveaway tied along with this knit along. Yeah, so I will start that thread. There's something like, there's supposed to be a thread where you like post finished objects, but then there's also a chatter thread. I'll see if I can figure out how to set those two things up separately so that we can keep just pictures of finished objects in one thread and talking about the knit along in the other thread. I also very, very much encourage progress pictures. Please show me how this is coming along for you. And also, if you have any questions and you've hit a weird spot or something and you want to take a picture of your project, you can email it to me, or you can message me on Ravelry. Let me know where you've hit a snag, and I'll try and see if I can help fix that for you. If I can have a visual, it works a lot better for me. So yeah, I think we covered everything. Tools, supplies, getting the pattern, yarn ideas, and the knit along threads on Ravelry. Awesome. So if you want to continue with this knit along, and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and then click the little bell so that you can always get an update for when I post a video. I do podcasts and reviews on tools and such as well, so you can get those updates. But then you'll also get the updates for when I post videos about the knit along. So I really appreciate any of your support, and if you know anybody who wants to join this knit along, be sure to forward them this video and let me know, or let them know that it's happening, so that we can get as many people in on this as possible. I would love, the idea is that by the time we're done, you will have this sweater ready for the next fall season. I'm expecting this to take a little while. I believe a lot of you are actually new to garment knitting, so I do want to make sure that we have time and patience, and that you definitely understand what's going on, because for me, after I knit my first sweater, I loved it, and it's not as scary to me anymore, and so I'm hoping that this will do the same for you. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm very excited for this knit along, and I hope you are as well. Leave me a comment for just letting me know if you're excited, or if you've knit one before and have any really cool tips or tricks, let me know about that, so that maybe I can incorporate that in the video for other people. So thank you for joining me. Subscribe if you haven't, and I can't wait to see all of your finished sweaters when this is done. All right. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful week, and I will see you again on this channel very, very soon. Bye.